Hey everyone, I'm Frank Cohen. I'm the founder and the CEO at Clevermo. Normally on Thursdays at 11 o'clock Pacific time here in California, I host something called an Ask Mo Anything, an AMA. It's really my chance to give answers to your advertising needs. You're probably a Shopify merchant or you're a marketer and you're probably trying to figure out, how do I do advertising to get people to pay attention to either my online store, to my marketing initiatives, or to my events? And I'll tell you, it's just not easy to do. So every Thursday, I host an Ask Mo Anything session. It lasts for about an hour. It's entirely free, and I'm taking this time for today's AMA, basically to go through some kind of commonly asked questions that I get asked all the time. And so before I do that, let me just tell you a little bit about kind of where Clevermo came from and what kind of problem it solves. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm an advertiser too. I'm a marketer. I had ran a whole bunch of ads on Facebook and got no results. And when I went back to the Facebook advertising salespeople, I said, hey, how is it that I've spent all of this money and I can't show how the money spent actually netted me out any sales? And of course, their answer was, well, we don't give that kind of information. But they were happy to take even more of my money. So I set about to develop a technique that I eventually defined as Clevermo, really to make it easy for all marketers, for all Shopify store owners to make use of these advertising networks in a productive and profitable way. So the first thing you have to know is that all of this is based on the fact that advertising is broken today. My goodness, there have been some huge technological changes over the last couple of years, let alone a little worldwide pandemic, that's really changed everything about the way that we used to run ads. So if I talk to the kind of average Shopify merchant, when I talk to them, I ask them, so how's it going? And normally what I hear back is that advertising is just terrible now, and we hate it. And it's like a really strong reaction, but then again, they're the ones that are spending a ton of money and not really seeing any results. The reason that advertising is broken for them is because of a technology change that happened a couple of years ago. So it used to be that you could go to, say, Facebook Ad Manager and tell it, hey, I want to start running some ads. They would recommend that you install something called a pixel. It's a little bit of JavaScript that gets installed in your online store or your website. And then Facebook could expand the target markets the target audiences that were seeing your ads automatically. You didn't really have to do as much work back then because their promise, the ad network's promise, was if you give a little bit of insight into who's coming to your store and why, then they'd be able to find the additional target audiences that would be your eventual customers. The problem is that the Europeans decided to come up with this thing called GDPR. It's basically a privacy standard that now allows the person who's using a browser to determine ahead of time whether they want some tracking to be done on their use of your website and all the other websites. And that was something called third-party cookie technology. And all of the ad networks, I'm just not trying to pick on Facebook, but all of the ad networks that offered this tracking pixel were using this third-party cookie technology, and it no longer works. Apple and Google announced about 2 years ago that their browsers, so Apple has Safari and Google has Chrome, they announced that their browsers would no longer support third-party cookie technology unless, of course, everybody signed up for it ahead of actually using it. So a lot of times when you go to a new website, it'll say, hey, do you accept our cookies? That's something new. That is based on the fact that the European Union, under the GDPR rules, now says that websites have to ask for that kind of permission or that consent before they can actually use these third-party cookies. So that means that the majority of those third-party cookies basically went away. And so that's like just terrible news for the advertising networks. If you look at the quarterly profit and loss statements from the advertising networks, you'll see that last quarter the Snap network reported almost a 30% loss in advertising revenue, and they could attribute that specifically to the fact that these third-party cookies weren't available anymore to the advertisers. The other thing that's true about these ad networks is that there is no commonality across any of them. So if you get really good at, say, Facebook, trying to move on to, say, take that same knowledge that you've got over to Twitter or LinkedIn or to YouTube, man, you're basically going through the same exact learning curve for each of those ad networks. So for however long it took you to get good at Facebook, it's going to take you the same amount of time to get good at Twitter and LinkedIn and all the other digital ad networks. So, plus there's no commonality across any of these ad networks. If you figure out how to use Facebook to figure out the interest-based marketing that they do, those interests that you create on your Facebook ads don't translate over to, say, Reddit ads or to YouTube. What's worse is that when I look at the statistics of people that are running their ads through the Clevermo system, what I see is that anytime an advertiser picks the wrong ad network, those ads could cost 80 times more just because they're on the wrong ad network. So take a look at this chart I have on the screen. You see that this is a typical cost per click, or CPC, for an ad campaign that a Shopify store merchant ran using Clevermo. Overall, the cost per click was 37 cents, which means that every time a person was on, say, Facebook and they saw an ad for that merchant and they clicked on it, that merchant was paying Facebook per click. And so the cost per click on Facebook for this Shopify merchant was 10 cents per click. But look over at the next column, that's Twitter. Twitter charged $8 per click. I mean, that's a huge difference. The next column over is Google with YouTube. That costs the advertiser 29 cents per click. LinkedIn was $2.50 per click, and Reddit was 20 cents per click. Now keep in mind, this is the very same ad across that's just running on the different ad networks. And yet there's a huge disparity in the cost of actually executing these ads. And so, as the merchant yourself, or as the marketer, you might be asking the question, well, which network gets me the most sales, the most return on ad spending? So the thing is that while advertising is terrible now for these merchants, you do have Clevermo as a solution for this. So Clevermo is one easy web platform that launches your ads on 6 social ad networks. Currently, we support Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Reddit. And we're always adding additional platforms, so you'll get even more ad networks over time. The second part of Clevermo is that we do the target market segmentation for the Shopify merchant automatically. I mean, you've already created, if you're the Shopify merchant, you've already created your store. That store contains product listings where you've figured out the best photo to put into the store and the best description of the product. Well, that's enough for Clevermo to know where the target markets are, those target audiences on those 6 social ad networks are, to run your ads. So you don't have to do any of the targeting using Clevermo to run your ads. Clevermo does it for you automatically. And as a result, because of the great targeting that we do, we lower the ad costs. And there's this cute sound effect that Shopify's app makes the first time you make a sale. It goes like ka-ching. And so what we say is that we're faster for you to get to market, faster to get to that ka-ching. Okay, so the way it works is that Clevermo is really easy to use web application. You sign up for an account, the accounts are free. And you get this user interface that lets you define an ad campaign. All you need to do to set up an ad campaign in Clevermo is name the campaign and then tell us where your Shopify store is. Now, if you type in the URL to your store, then Clevermo will pop up a list of the products in that store, and then you get to select which one you want to promote, which product you want to promote. You identify the start and end date of the campaign and how much you want to spend, and then that's where the magic begins, because Clevermo does everything else for you. So Clevermo actually composes the ad itself, grabbing the images that you've already created for your store, and then also it grabs the description of the product. So you don't have to do anything more than just tell Clevermo where the store is, when you want to run the ads, and how much you want to spend. Clevermo operates a dashboard then for you that you see every time you log in, and that dashboard is going to show you the results of the ad that you've launched across those 6 different digital ad networks. And so it'll tell you a total column showing you how many impressions you got, how much the cost was for those impressions, how much the cost was for those clicks. And then it breaks it down by all of the digital ad networks that it ran your ad on. And as a result, you tend to get 3 times or more return on your ad spending. So for example, those 37-cent clicks, I saw the same ads costing $3.70, so 10 times as much, and that was without using the Clevermo system. The difference is that Clevermo is doing that targeting for you, and so the audiences already are interested in your product. They just want to hear from you. And so as a result, you get these tremendously better, higher conversion rates, meaning the people seeing your ads come to your store and actually buy. Now, how do we know that they actually buy? Well, Clevermo automatically inserts its own tracking pixel into the Shopify store, and so it can track by each ad network and overall by each ad how much the ads were costing you and how many people landed on your store because of them and how many people actually went through and bought the product through the online store from you. Pretty cool, huh? And all of this is done automatically. Okay, what I wanted to do was give you some questions that I often hear, and then what I want you to consider is coming back next Thursday at 11 o'clock Pacific time and asking me the questions that I didn't answer. I'm going to be here for you every Thursday at 11 o'clock Pacific time. It's entirely free. Pick my brain. Let's consider what you've done in the past, what you've tried, what worked and what didn't. I'm happy to talk to you about it. And not only that, you'll be joined by the other people that participate in this Ask Mo Anything on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So if you want to meet other Shopify merchants or other marketers, then come on in. The water's nice and warm. So there are a couple of questions that I get asked frequently, and so I just wanted to answer, say, 5 of them today. So the first is, how do I start? Well, it's simple. So here's our website. There's a sign up button up here. If you click on it, it asks you for your first name, your last name, your email address. You click here saying you're not a robot, and when you click register, it'll ask you to accept the terms of service that we've got, and then it'll send you an email, and that email is there just to verify that we got your email address correctly. That's it. That's all there is to the sign up. Now, you might be wondering, well, how do I actually use it? I'll tell you, Clevermo is set up so that there isn't any user manual. And that's because we wanted to make it super simple for you to use. So once you go through this sign up process, you'll have an email address that we know, and we'll set you up with a password, and you use that to log into the website, into the web application. That's it. Okay, so the next question is, do you need ad accounts? Well, you might be asking, what is an ad account? Well, each of the ad networks like Facebook and Twitter and the others, they each have ad accounts. So these are kind of like special accounts that you get. Like on Twitter, you get a Twitter ad account it identifies a payment method, which is typically your credit card, or it could be an ATM card or something like that. An ad account then keeps track of all the campaigns that you launch, and it acts as kind of a campaign manager. With Clevermo, you connect to your ad accounts on those 6 different ad networks. I'm going to update our YouTube channel for Clevermo to include the videos that show you instructions on how to create the ad accounts on Facebook and the other ad networks. But for right now, let me show you how this works. Like, let's say I wanted to connect to Twitter. I'm already connected here, so I'll say disconnect. Say yes. Okay, now I'm disconnected. Now it says connect. If I click on connect and say yes, it's going to go over to Twitter. I'm already logged in, and so it created the connection. Now it's going to use the Clevermo ads account on Twitter, and specifically this ad account. And that's how I connect Clevermo to my ad accounts on those different digital ad networks. Do you need the ad accounts? Yes, you do. But you don't need them on all 6 ad networks. It could be that you just want to be connected to, say, Facebook or LinkedIn or Reddit, and it's fine not to include all of them. However, if you do include all of them, then Clevermo works at its best because it's going to show you the target audiences that are available on those digital ad networks, and you'll be able to get the terrific ad results because it'll show you a comparison of how well your ads performed from one ad network to another. Okay, the next question is, what are the differences between the 6 digital social ad networks? Well, that's a good question to ask because each one of them came from a different background. So you have Facebook, which really started off kind of as a social network, but then try to expand out into everything else. I mean, a friend of mine, for example, will go to parties and he will turn on Facebook Live and be a broadcaster from that party and show off like all the good stuff that's happening at that party, right? Compare that to, say, LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I would expect to find people who are like looking for jobs, who have services that would be valuable to my business, that are more professional in nature. If you look at Reddit, I would expect that Reddit is kind of where Facebook used to be, in that Reddit offers a common kind of community of like-minded individuals where I can ask questions about, you know, either politics or product reviews or techniques or social issues and get answers in a really kind of happy and supportive way. On Reddit, for example, they have this idea of karma, where the more you participate and the more upvotes that you get from the other community members, the more respect that you get from your participation there. With Google and YouTube, YouTube is probably the leading video publishing site right now. So any of those video bloggers out there that are talking about topics of interest that you like. For example, I love going to the Disney parks, and so I follow video bloggers that go to the parks all the time. I can run ads to the people who are watching them who might have an interest in Disney products. So if my online Shopify merchant store is selling something Disney related, wouldn't I want to get to the audience of those video bloggers? Well, that's the YouTube channel. That's the YouTube network for me. Twitter is really great for like urgent news. It's kind of like, okay, tell me what's going on in the world and do it really quickly. I really like that. And then Instagram, I find, is really good in that people are able to like talk to one another rationally, and like it's not so chaotic as I find Facebook is. So if you're trying to find, say, a lifestyle product, Instagram seems like a really great network to like get to people, to audience members who would be interested in lifestyle products. That could be like cosmetics or auto parts or pretty much anything that would improve your lifestyle. The next question is, what can go wrong and why? Well, I'll tell you, the biggest problem that I find for all of these digital ad networks is that while they might take your money, there is no guarantee of who's actually seeing your ad. nor is there any like tracking from those ad networks back to your online store or back to your website, where you can then prove, hey, I spent this money and I got this kind of result. So what can go wrong is that you can spend a bunch of your budget and not see any results for it. What I recommend you do as an answer to this would be to test as much as you can. I have something I call the 3x3 testing methodology, and if you look on our YouTube channel, you see a video on showing you how it works. And it basically says that you should test both the messages separately from the images and videos that you have in your ads, and then be able to pick out which messages and videos are going to get the best response rates that you're desiring or that you're needing. So what can go wrong? Well, lots. And so my intention is that every Thursday in this Ask Mo Anything, we're going to address the campaigns that didn't work and figure out like why, and then come up with answers for how you could go about recovering from that wrong thing and make it better. Okay, the last question here is, how does Clevermo pick the audiences? Well, we do that by taking a look at topics. Topics are discussions that are happening within all of those digital ad networks all the time. And those topics could be keywords or interests, they could be brand names, they could be sentiments, they could be images or indicators of like what you're interested in or what the audience member is interested in. We have a machine learning engine that keeps track of 3.5 billion people's average daily discussions within all of those digital ad networks. And we do it by picking out the topics that they're talking about and using that to match your ad, your online merchant store to the audiences that are out there. And we're not only doing that before we launch the ad for you, but also after the ad launches, we continue to take a look and see, are there better audiences that would work for you? We add those. And then are there audiences where the return on your ad spending just isn't working? Those audiences that aren't making purchases, that aren't visiting your online store, we remove those automatically for you. So that dashboard is constantly being updated as the ad runs. Yeah, and that's why we recommend that you run a bunch of these tests, a bunch of campaigns concurrently. It's not as complicated when you're using Clevermo as if you were to try and manage all of these campaigns yourself with all these digital ad networks, because with Clevermo, you have one single website to deploy, to launch your ads across all those ad networks, and then to manage them for you automatically. Okay, so that's today's Ask Mo Anything. And I'm glad that you hung in there through the end of this video. I'd like to invite you personally, come on down every Thursday at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific time. I'm very happy to ask any of your questions, point out the things that I know, tell you about the trends that I see that are underway in the ad networks, and tell you about the things that you should be taking advantage of and the stuff that I know just doesn't work. Okay, I'm Frank Cohen, the founder and CEO at Clevermo, and I'm really glad that you took some time away from your busy schedule to participate in this brief presentation. I invite you to come to the Thursday Ask Mo Anything, and I hope you have a good and productive day. So long.